Howdy do, everybody. Happy Monday and welcome to another TrendSpider Chart Roundup. So today we're going to be going over the markets, how they played out today, but also how they're looking at into the next 4 days of the week. So as always, we're going to start with the broad markets, then we'll jump into some individual names. If you guys want to see any tickers, I have a massive list here. So if you want to pop them in the chat, I've got the chat up right here. So I'm kind of looking at the chat as I'm talking. So if there is something you want to see, I'll try to get to it, but we have so many names to go over already. Not sure if we're going to have time for requests, but you'll probably see the name that you want to see unless it's just some really small name. We're going to go over a lot of the main tickers today. So starting with SPY, just absolute rip today, just gap and go the whole way. And, this is definitely something that, as the Fed starts to kind of take back what they said last week, I think that's really bringing confidence back in the market. And honestly, last week around Wednesday, I definitely thought things may continue to pull back with some of these Fed comments, but classic Fed, they're, honestly, I think a lot of the time they're just there to test the market. Ooh, let's see what happens if we say we're probably going to start tapering this year. So, that's kind of already in the back seat. And now we're hitting new all-time highs on SPY, the Qs, but IWM and XBI are lagging. So could those be the ones that really bring the market to the next leg here? We will look. Now, SPY, nice gap and go. The main thing that I'm watching here on SPY is the fact that we did break this previous high here from, let me turn on my crosshair so you guys can see this a little better. There we go. From August 16th. So we broke above that. The main thing that I'm focused on is the raindrop and the fact that there's quite a bit of volume at the top of the range. So there was definitely conviction by buyers above resistance. However, not a huge fan of this gap up. It's going to get filled eventually, but I'm not here to try to predict when that's going to happen. For now, the trend is up. It's been up for a while. And once again, a buy the dip opportunity here for SPY. Now, if we go to the Qs, same thing. Huge breakout today, more of an ascending triangle breakout though. So if we turn off the volume by price, you'll see here that we just had an absolutely huge rip to the upside. And you'll see here that at this point, you can't really look left. So if you hear anyone ever talk about looking left, that means look at the previous price action and see what are your levels. Well, since we're hitting all-time highs, there are no levels to the left. So what you do is you simply just use the Fibonacci extension. So here's our high, here's our low, and you'll see here that I don't like to use the 0 and the 1 because it just makes the chart a little more polluted in my opinion. But for educational purposes, we're starting here. Here's the top. So we're measuring the move from here. We're measuring the move all the way down here. And you'll see here that the 1.618 extension is above right around 376. So just keep that in mind when you are looking at something that's hitting new highs, especially new all-time highs, not necessarily just new highs in the trend, because if you're not at all-time highs, there's always going to be price action to the left. But in this case, hitting all-time highs on the Qs, there is none of that. So all we can really use for upside is the 1.618 extension, and that's right around that 376 level. So a huge move to the upside. It would be pretty healthy to get a retest of this resistance. We've pretty much gone straight up for the last 3 days. So it would be healthy to see a pullback, let's say, to the 370 area, but we'll have to see if we get it. All right, so looks like the chat is blowing up. What's up, everybody? Thanks for being nice and engaging today. So Mr. Creighton Hoddle, big shout out to him. He is the man, and I think I'll be meeting him at the Orlando FinTwit conference. If you guys have not signed up for that, make sure to sign up. That is October 8th through the 10th, and really looking forward to meeting a lot of people that I've been talking to on the internet for literally 18 months at this point, and finally going to be able to shake some hands, give some hugs, just say hello to everybody. So looking forward to seeing him in Orlando. Hopefully I'll see you guys there too. So that is the Qs. IWM, really an interesting setup here. So IWM, And this is something I like to use a lot if there's an overextension or overextension to the upside or the downside. The automated multi-time frame analysis. So the ability to look at the weekly Bollinger Bands on the daily chart. And you'll see here that pretty much deja vu from back in mid-July. So you'll see here that we've got the weekly Bollinger Band. This lower band here is just the weekly lower Bollinger Band. And notice that the last time that price dropped below that area, we had a really strong move to the upside for 2 days in a row. Well, we are literally right here once again. We've got the close below the weekly Bollinger Band, and then we've got 2 really strong days to the upside. The question is this a bigger move, or is this just another move possibly to this 20-week simple moving average above around 223 and then a pullback? We'll have to see. The main thing that I'm focused on here is the monthly chart. So if you look at the monthly chart going all the way back to the early 2000s, we are simply just retesting this breakout trend line. So it's really hard for me to get too bearish here on IWM when we just had a massive long-term breakout here. So this is the monthly chart. You can see here we've been consolidating now for literally about 7 months, haven't gone anywhere. And sometimes you need that for the next leg up. So for me, all this is on IWM for now is just a retest of the breakout point, healthy, and in that case, I would expect higher. Now, the weekly side does show a little difference here. You can see that we kind of have this rounded top. When we have had these kind of rounded tops in the past, they have been signals for a bigger move to the downside. So you always have to look at the bear thesis and the bull thesis. In this case, this is definitely the bear thesis, possibly a rounded top. But on the monthly chart, the bull thesis is simply we're retesting this breakout zone here, and you really want to see this early on a breakout. So you've got your retest and then a continuation higher. So let's see, when is the event in Orlando? October 8th through 10th. So just go to FinTwit Conference on Twitter, and you'll be able to check out all the details there. It's being hosted by Jonah Lupton. TrendSpider, we're going to be doing a sponsorship, and we'll have a table there so you guys can check out the platform and use it and see if you like it. So that is the FinTwit conference for those that were asking in the chat. How's Kuba doing? Kuba is great. He just got his 2-month shots. He's already 2 months old. Can you believe that? So yeah, he's a little tired, hurting a little bit from his shots this morning, but all in all, doing great. So thank you for asking. But on to what I think is probably one of the least looked at kind of sectors right now, and that is the biotech sector. So biotech has really done nothing. It's been in a downtrend now since February, at least a shorter term, medium term downtrend. But over the longer term, if you look at the weekly setup here, we're still in a long-term uptrend. So always remember, you always sometimes have to zoom out. What may be a downtrend in the shorter term can be just a pivot in the longer term. So in this case, the main thing that I'm watching here on XBI is XBI from the highs is down almost 30%. The other thing I'm watching here is the fact that the anchored VWAP from the COVID low has been holding really nicely here. So you can see here, I'm just anchoring from this point here back in March of 2020. You'll see here that the anchored VWAP has acted as a nice level for supply to dry up and or buyers stepping in over the last couple months. We need to break this downward trend line here. That's the main thing that I'm watching here. Remember, this is a function of time. So if we did try to break out this week, we'd really need to break above the 128.50 and close above that on the weekly chart. But if we do, one of these, pull back and then, do one of these, could be a breakdown. The main thing I'm watching the downside is that anchored VWAP from the COVID low. And the main thing on the upside is this longer term, this medium term trend line that is shown here in red. So all in all, I'm thinking we could have a double bottom here. That's just my thinking. Take it for what it's worth. It's just simply an opinion and based on just how biotech works. I do think this is going to be very strong into the rest of the year. COVID's not going anywhere. That's definitely going to bring some biotech kind of media presence and, a really strong day today. 4% over 4% on the day for XBI. So that is biotech. Let's see. Let's go into some crypto. And sorry, guys, I just keep looking down at the chat, and I'll address some of these things here. So crypto, not shocked to see, crypto essentially just getting rejected at the $50,000 mark. It's a psychological level. So that's not really shocking at all. The thing that you want to watch for on the upside, if we anchor the volume by price from the all-time highs here, you have quite a bit of supply up here starting around, let's say 53,300 to around 54K. So I'll highlight this in red. If we did continue up, that would be the next area to get through. And notice that we've got this volume gap here. We don't have a lot of liquidity above for Bitcoin if it starts to move up pretty quickly through this area. So I'll just highlight this in blue. And that's kind of the main level I'm watching on the upside is around 54K. On the downside, 47K is the area that I'm watching. And for now, it's just kind of stuck. It's kind of oscillating just between that 50K area on the upside and the downside. So all in all, Bitcoin has had quite a run. It wouldn't be shocking to see it, have a little bit of a breather, but it's crypto. There's no such thing as having a normal day in the crypto space. So all we can do is look at the levels. Ethereum, you can see here last week, I think we were talking about Ethereum being in this ascending wedge. We broke down through it. We never got down to this anchored VWAP from the July 19th low. And you can see that we are starting to hit new highs. Now, one thing I'll mention here, it does look like a pretty strong ascending triangle here. So you've got your previous highs here, this horizontal level. And then if you simply look at this, this looks pretty strong, to be completely honest. So if we just take away the volume by price and look at pure price action, we're getting pretty close to just breaking out of this ascending triangle here forming. So, keep that in mind. Ethereum seems to be leading here, and it may start to lead again if we do break out here in the coming day or two. So that is Ethereum. Nice ascending triangle setup. Let's look at the weekly. We did have a little bit of a flush last week. Not shocking. I think we talked a little bit about, this was going to be the fourth green week in a row. We had that little flush, and now we're continuing higher. To me, that's a very strong sign of, I think we're going to hit all-time highs easily on Ethereum this year. So we'll see how that goes, but definitely wouldn't put it past all crypto to start hitting new highs. Next one I want to go over is Solana. This is one that I definitely have been following quite a bit because I have some friends who are trading it who have made some great money. So shout out to Zach and Brad trading this. They really nailed the breakout here. And yeah, I mean, this was my initial target. Let me find something that actually has the price action. I think it's Bitfinex that has more. Okay, there we go. So it was pretty obvious on the weekly that we had this breakout back in late July. And then the target was simply just this previous high. And we just absolutely rocked it and some over the next few weeks. So this is definitely one of the stronger names hitting all-time highs here. So definitely keep Sol on your watch list. This is one that really I think is starting to get quite a bit of traction. You're seeing it talked about a lot on FinTwit. So definitely keep this one on your radar for crypto. Let's just look at the chat here. Cardano. Yeah, let's do ADA. This is another one that's this is one that definitely is leading as well. So Cardano, once again, kind of looking similar to Sol, where you broke this previous high here from May of 2021, hitting new highs, absolutely just ripping here. So congrats to those that are in this one. Looks relatively decent. We'll have to see what it does into the coming weeks. Now, keep in mind, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks in a row green. Now, this week just started, so keep that in mind. This can look very different by the end of the week. But for now, another strong week in the making for ADA, which is Cardano. So that is all that we're going to do on crypto. Just looking at some of this this chat. Okay, so we've got a couple of these names that we're already going to look at. So we're just going to go through some of the names that I'm really liking right now, starting with GRWG. Really liking GRWG here. This thing got absolutely destroyed after earnings. And, you know, you've got this really strong bull flag here on the weekly chart. So this is the main thing I'm watching. And if you follow me on Twitter, if you've watched these live streams often, you'll know that I am mostly using the anchored VWAP for your level, at least to the downside and the upside. So what's really interesting is notice that we had the confluence of this bull flag support and this anchored VWAP from the March low. So holding really well for now. Now it's only Monday. There's still 4 days left in the week. I'm thinking that we could have a very strong move to the upside, and I'll show you guys kind of why I'm thinking that on the daily chart. So one, you kind of had about 3 or 4 days here of just hanging out. Now, one thing I'll mention, anytime that you see a candle closing inside a wick like this, that is like a very, very strong signal for me. So Friday, this is kind of like my, all right, I need to get in signal. So I was able to get in on Friday, and I was able to get in more today. As a long-term investment, I've got an open trade, and I've got a longer-term kind of horizon here that I'm actually just dollar cost averaging in. So on the trade side of things, the reason why I think this can really move very quickly is if you anchor the volume by price from the all-time high, or excuse me, not the all-time high, this previous swing high here, you'll see here that we've got this massive volume shelf here. So just this huge volume shelf, and you don't have a lot of liquidity above until we get to around 35. So this area above, just not a lot of shares above, a lot of supply above to stop the price. And that's why I think this thing could really move quickly. So if we do anchor the volume by price a little further back from all-time highs, you'll see here as well, you know, you really don't have a lot of supply from the all-time highs until we get to around 37, 38. So anytime you see this kind of very small rounded bottom and a really strong candle like this, definitely worth keeping on the radar. Closed and broke through that $30.50 area that I was really watching for. And so I'm very bullish on this one going into the next few days. It's just been beaten down. Maybe it's not a long-term bottom, but I definitely think, you know, at least from a short-term perspective, this is ready to have some type of correction to the upside. Now, we do have the gap above. That could be a target as well for some people. So your gap starts right around 40 bucks, closes above around 41.65. So I got in, I'm buying my son definitely some stocks that I like into the next 10 to 15 years. This is definitely one of them. I started a very small position, like 900 bucks or something, right around 41.75. And then I bought 2x that amount down here for him. So all in all, you know, I'm definitely thinking that, you know, as I dollar cost average in, this is going to be a long-term winner. We'll just have to see. My target for the actual active trade that I'm in would be around 37 to 38, and then we'll kind of see from there. But you know, this is kind of how you trade around a core position. You can actively trade, and you can still hold some for the longer term as well. So just keep that in mind. You know, you can keep a position and trade around your core position. That's what a lot of people do, and it allows you to take profit, but also keep your exposure to whatever you're trading. So that's GRWG. As I mentioned, the thesis here is the weekly setup. Now, the bearish setup would be a breakdown below that COVID low anchored VWAP. And if that happens, then I could see this probably getting down to the $20 to $23 area. So these previous highs here, if we did break down through this anchor VWAP, definitely could see this possibly getting down to, let's say, 22. And then that would be probably the next area that I buy some. So all in all, this is definitely a longer term play for me. I do like the bull flag here. And then on the monthly chart, you know, this is still very much in a long-term uptrend. I mean, you have these types of moves where you have to correct and then continue to the upside. So this, if I had to guess what this chart looks like in the next, let's say, year or two, something like this. That's kind of what I'm envisioning here on GRWG. Next one is PENN. This is one that I had a position in and stopped out of it on Wednesday. However, I definitely realized that I was wrong pretty quickly on this and got back in. I got back in the $10, $15, $75 calls, took some profit on those this week. Why? well, my wife is having a surgery later this week, and I really don't want to have any active positions open when I'm trying to help out with Kuba, at least on the option side. So I decided to take my profit on that. I think I took like 18 or 19% profit on the 10-15 $75 calls. And then I do still have some open for the 10-15 $80 calls that I also bought on Friday. So that's a decent sized position. We'll see how it plays out. So that is PENN. So the thesis here is you've got this really, really narrow bull flag forming. You've got the monthly candle trying to form a decent candle here. And if we close above 72 is really what I'm looking at. But if we close above this resistance here, and you can see here that I'm using body to body here because it has more touches. But even if you did this like wick to wick here, we're actually technically kind of already breaking out. So it just depends on how you want to look at it. I prefer on this one more of a body to body. And you'll see here that, you know, we're kind of trying to break out, but definitely one that I'm liking. Football season's coming up. A lot of things in favor for sports gambling coming up right now. On the weekly side of things, we've got this falling wedge that we are starting to break out of. So you'll see here that it is only Monday, so keep that in mind. And if we anchor the volume by price from, so we'll anchor it from a couple places here, get an idea where volume is holding. You'll see that we have quite a bit of supply to get through. We'd really need to get through around 78 for this to really take off. Now, if you look at the volume by price from the COVID lows, you'll see something a little different. You'll see that essentially we do have kind of this decent shelf forming here, but we're not above it yet. So that's why I keep mentioning on my Twitter, I want to see a close above 72. Honestly, maybe even a little higher than that, probably 73. Another thing on the indicator side of things is you do have this MACD curling. So it's looking really strong here from a MACD perspective. Looks like the trend is reversing. We've gone down over 50% from the highs back in March. So all in all, this is one that I do think could absolutely rip in the next couple of weeks, and we'll have to see. Now, one thing that's interesting, I have a price target for PENN at $85 by mid-September. Will it hit? Who knows? We'll see. But if I think that PENN is going to hit $85 by mid-September, I am definitely not going to buy $85 calls for mid-September. If I think it's going to hit $85 by September, I'm probably going to buy the October 15th calls or even later. You have to give yourself some margin of error. The only time these short-term options work is if you have this massive impulse move to the upside. Sometimes it will work, but for me, I've had a lot more success trading options, giving myself some time and knowing that there's always going to be some margin of error with any type of target that I'm looking at. So just a little thing to think about. If I come out with a target by X date, I'm generally thinking, at least if I'm trading options on it, look out another month from that target date. So the falling wedge on the weekly, check. That's a bull thesis. MACD curling on the weekly, bull thesis. And then that monthly chart just looking really strong for at least some type of correction up to around, let's say, the anchor VWAP from the all-time high, which is right around 88 to 89 right now. So keep in mind that we do have this MACD cross recently on the monthly, but also keep in mind this has dropped over 50%. So sometimes the MACD can be a little lagging. So just keep that in mind if you are looking at the MACD on the weekly, on the monthly chart. But that recent monthly MACD cross is something to consider on the bull side, the bear side of things too. So that is PENN. Spotify is another one that I've been eyeing now for literally since I got out of it back in the 240s. So I got out at 240. It ripped all the way to 280, and then it dropped all the way almost to 200. So I've been just waiting for this moment to absolutely load up, and I think we finally got it. I bought some long-term. I bought a long-term position in this today for Kuba as well. So you've got the monthly hammer forming here. Now there's still a little time left in the month, about 6 trading days left. So keep in mind this can change. But if you look at the weekly chart, you know, you've got this absolutely beautiful setup here You've got the, I guess we can call this a falling wedge. Not kind of your typical falling wedge, but definitely falling wedge. You've got lower lows here, lower highs, creating this wedge. Nice weekly close last week. Strong move to the upside already. The first area that you'd want to watch is probably around 235 to 240. That's this resistance above. And that's assuming that we move up there pretty quick. This can easily chop around for a while. I mean, you could do one of these for the next month and a half. So keep that in mind. This is one that I took a trade. I went pretty heavy on this around 212.50 or so on Friday, and then I sold it on Friday on the spike at around 216.25 or so, and then put those proceeds into GRWG. And so far, it's been a pretty nice move to the upside on GRWG. So pretty happy with that trade. And yeah, just keep in mind that, you know, a profit is profit. If you're looking at maybe the longer term, maybe it makes sense to hold this longer. Like I said, I just started a longer term position in this higher than what I sold it on Friday because I'm trading different accounts. You know, one account I'm actively trading. Another account I'm just dollar cost averaging long term. Another account I'm just kind of holding for a thesis on a couple names. So you can have different accounts. It's actually good to have different accounts because you can play the market a little differently and trade around these core positions. And so just keep that in mind, that if you do only have one trading account, you can kind of get caught up in you know, a little too much of the same action. So having, you know, a short-term account, medium-term account, long-term account, you can really trade around those core positions. So keep that in mind on spot. Loving it here. Weekly, loving the bounce. Daily, loving the falling wedge breakout here. So just, this is one that I was watching last week around, I think, 205. We got one more down day, and then just that really big move to the upside. If you anchor a VWAP from the high here, that's also right around 230. So if you guys were looking at my targets on this into mid-September, this is where I got that target. 230 is the anchor VWAP from the swing high above. So that is Spotify, another one that I'm really liking here. Yes, we will get to Disney RSAJ, I promise. Got it. So VIAC is another one that I've been watching forever. I don't have a position in this, but I'm definitely thinking, you know, that the consolidation here is definitely worth noting. So if we anchor the volume by price from the COVID lows, I mean, this is one of the biggest volume shelves I've seen. Now, the question is this distribution? We'll know if the price starts breaking down below these previous lows. I'm going to assume this is distribution. However, if we break above, let's say 43 and close above that on the weekly, I'm thinking that this is going to prove as accumulation. Millionaire's World. I never liked Wish. I liked it as a technical setup, and that was it. I'm not into the whole long-term kind of view there. If it does, great. I hope it does for everybody, but I'm not one of these people that's obsessed with Wish. Definitely not. I don't fall in love with any stock because that's how you blow up your account. So yes, maybe we'll touch on Wish, but it's definitely not on the main focus for today. So Viacom, we do have the COVID low volume shelf, as I mentioned. On the daily chart, I mean, this is like an option seller's dream. I mean, this is just trading in a very tight range, chopping up options premiums. I mean, people are just collecting probably a fortune in premiums if they're holding this position. So keep that in mind. Definitely until we break that previous high around 47, that's definitely something to consider. There is a gap above, way up here from when old Bill Huang or Hong, or I can never say his last name. This is when he started to blow up his hedge fund, but there is that gap right around $90 above. So keep that in mind on the bull case. This is still dust settling here, and I think this whole move was artificial from him personally. So we'll have to see if this does make some moves. Definitely keep in mind 43 would be the area that I'd want to see close above on the weekly chart. Roku is the next one. Another one that I've been keeping an eye on. This one's hard just because the premiums are so expensive. I guess it doesn't really matter if you buy 10 contracts for $2,000 or you buy one contract for $2,000. It doesn't really matter if you make 20% on each one, but the contracts here are very expensive and probably a little too rich for a lot of people's blood. The main thing that I'm kind of keeping an eye on here is the fact that we did kind of break this downtrend, and we're not moving up as quickly as, you know, some people I think thought. I think a lot of people look at Roku and they remember those 10% days a month or so ago, and they're thinking that's going to happen again. It could. Why? Well, you don't have a lot of volume above. You know, we talk about the volume gap all the time, and this area that I have highlighted in blue, you don't have a lot of supply above. You don't have a lot of liquidity up here. So what that means is the price can move very quickly. Now, if you anchor a VWAP from this all-time, I think this is the all-time high. Yes, this all-time high candle here, the anchored volume weighted average price is right around 400, which is also the psychological level as well. So if Roku did make a move, you've got the volume shelf here. You've got this nice area of volume nodes. So that's something to keep in mind for a base for price to move up off of. And if we do move up, 400 psychological level, and the anchor VWAP is right around 400 too. Now on the monthly chart, not loving this double top look. So almost a perfect double top here. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. But you know, at the same time, it wouldn't hurt for this to pull back a little bit. So if we anchor the VWAP from the IPO, you'll see here that we are way overextended, at least regarding the anchored VWAP from the IPO. You'll notice here that not only is the anchored VWAP there, but you've got this huge volume shelf below. Notice that anytime this has pulled back, it's pulled back to the anchored VWAP. At this point, that would be an absolutely massive move to the downside, so I don't think we're going to get that. What I would do is I'd anchor a VWAP from this March 2020 low, and that anchored VWAP is right around 210. That's also still quite a ways below. If we anchor another VWAP from this point here, which is your kind of your handoff point, that would put us closer to around 275. So 275, 210, and then way down here at 120, which I don't think is even remotely possible, but who knows? We'll have to see. No, I do not look at pre or post market price action in regards to candles, SAT-SI. There's just too much stuff that goes on in pre-market that's kind of just, I only pay attention to the open market price action. So that is Roku, PLTR. This is another one that if you look at the weekly chart here, pretty strong day here on PLTR actually. What's going on here? So you've got the previous breakout. That's something to consider on this symmetrical triangle. And you'll see here that we do have just this massive volume shelf forming here. This is another one that a lot of smart people that I know really like this. I think the problem is everybody likes this, and it became a little bit of an overcrowded trade. That's why it's having trouble really getting some steam. But you do have this huge volume shelf forming. That's what I'm keeping an eye on. I would be bullish if we were able to get a weekly close above around 26. Until then, we're kind of stuck with the market digesting this current supply that we're in right now. So if you follow me on Twitter, there's 3 different colors that I use. I use green, I use yellow, and I use red. This is definitely going to be more of a yellow volume shelf because we are still trying to digest this supply. We're not above the volume shelf yet. So that's why this is yellow. If we were above, if the price was above this volume shelf, I would highlight it green. If the price was way below it, I would highlight this area red because it's going to be very hard supply initially. So PLTR on the weekly, so far so good, pretty strong start. Here on the daily, if we anchor the volume by price from the swing high here, bear case, you do have a gap below that fills right around 23.20. This is what a lot of people would call kind of your power earnings gap, which was coined by trader Stewie. And so you've got the gap up, you've got consolidation. And so this does look pretty good for continuation up. My target would just be this previous high here, right around 2750. You do have a very, very, very small gap right around 2620 that would need to fill. So 2620 is the gap above. If that breaks, then this previous high right around 2750 would be your next level to watch. So all in all, I think this one's looking pretty strong. FUBO. Love me some FUBO. This is one that's a long-term hold for me. It's probably at this point almost an investment because I do think that one, based on just the total addressable market here, the TAM, compared to the market cap, I think it just makes a lot of sense for this to be a much larger market cap in the future. They're doing a lot of good things. They also have a lot of expenses, so keep that in mind. But, you know, they just raised money. The one thing I don't like about this right now, and the reason why I wouldn't trade it, is because they have an at-the-market offering right now. So an ATM, if you ever see anyone saying ATM, that means at-the-market offering. That means that they can dilute at the market price, whatever price they want. They don't have to say, hey, we're raising capital. That you don't know what price, you know, they got those shares at when they're doing an at the market offering. So that's why, at least for trading purposes, I'm not a huge fan of this one right now, but it's holding everywhere it needs to on the monthly chart. You've got the volume shelf holding, you've got a green monthly close. If we could close around, let's say 29 or 30, I'll take that close all day for a monthly close here. And on the daily chart, we did kind of have this ascending triangle forming. We did break down, and now we're trying to kind of figure out what we want to do next on FUBO. So the first area to watch would definitely be this previous support now acting as resistance. It would be around 28 bucks. And then from there, we'll have to kind of take it and see where things go. But all in all, the main thing I'm watching is one, the gap above, but over the long term, I think this definitely will get back to its previous highs and more. So that is FUBO. CRM. This one definitely needs to be on your long-term watch list. So CRM, this is one that I've been kind of watching for quite some time now. And let's see, volume by price. From the COVID lows, you can't really get a better setup than that. Ascending triangle, breakout off the volume shelf. I'm thinking this definitely retests all-time highs, if not more, right around 285. But keep in mind, I think earnings are coming up, so that can always throw a wrench in the whole equation. But this thing definitely has been consolidating now for quite some time. Huge rounded bottom here as well. So if you look at the monthly chart, you do kind of have this rounded base here. And I'm just looking at the measured move here on CRM. So if we remove the volume by price and we take this previous move and apply it to this low, you know, this could be a $500 stock pretty easily if this followed the same measured move. Now, definitely won't happen as quickly as this did in COVID times, but you know, if you took that measured move, this would put it around 500 bucks. Let's stay below 31 on the calls. All right. Well, I mean, unless we get a huge move, I think, unless you're like buying $31 calls for December, I would, or even maybe October, should be good. Who knows? That's just my opinion. But okay, that is CRM. Next up is Disney. Yes, we're going to go over Disney. So a few things on Disney that I like. One, earnings were great. The market just had a reason to sell off though. Now, the main thing I'm watching here is definitely the anchored volume weighted average price pinch. So the anchored VWAP pinch from the October 2020 pivot and the all-time high pivot here. So you can see that the price is now trading very tightly within this this pinch here. So you can see the pinch is formed by this lower anchor VWAP, and I have a percent offset here. So it's a zone rather than just one exact line. Same thing on the upside. Until we break above 187 and close above 187 on the weekly chart, this thing is stuck. So that's why I have I did trade this into earnings, got a nice pop on those. However, I'm not going to really trade this until it gets above this 187 because this thing is chopped around so long. once again, if somebody's holding a long-term position and they're just selling covered calls on this, they're probably bringing in a ton of money because it has done nothing for like 3 months now. But the longer that this consolidation occurs, the stronger the move is likely going to be when it does happen. So Disney, really liking Disney. We'll just have to see how this plays out into the coming weeks. But like I said, needs to close above 187 on the weekly chart to get me interested. Now, if we look at the daily, kind of the same thing. I mean, and until we break above that area, we're stuck. So could this oscillate back and forth between these levels more? Absolutely. So Disney, maybe this is a time you want to accumulate. I don't know. Depends on what you're kind of looking at Disney for. But if you're like trying to trade this on options, you're just going to get chopped up until this really shows any sign of continuing the trend to the upside. VISL, this is one that was remarkably strong today. This is one that I did have a position in. I mentioned a month or two ago that I did exit this around 252. Didn't like the downtrend. Mentioned that we could probably get to around 180. I think we tagged like 175. So, are we getting close to a bottom? If we look at the weekly chart, this is what's a little concerning on VISL. This is definitely for more of your small cap traders. This is like $120 million market cap or something, but I definitely don't love this breakdown. So, if you were looking at this, except on the upside, you'd probably be very bullish on it because it broke out. This is kind of the opposite. So just keep that in mind that technically we did break down. I know a lot of people still look at this one. For me, probably won't trade this one again. It's just too small of a market cap, and I just don't really like the price action on this one. So we will see how it goes. Snowflake's one that I'm really liking as well. What the hell happened at this thing last week? I actually forgot that this dropped like 10% in a day. So I'm not sure what happened here, but shocker, where did we catch a bid and where did we close last week? Right at the all-time high anchored VWAP. We bounced off that area almost perfectly so far this week. So all in all, target remains around 325. But yeah, this thing is crazy. And look at where we bounced last week. Right at the top of the volume shelf. So yeah, so keep that in mind. Peter Pan, I'm not sure what NeuroStreet's tools are. Yes, Tiny Pie Media, I agree. I'm tired of hearing about Wish as well for now. It's just people got to let it go for a second. Snowflake on the daily chart. Yeah, and if someone knows anything about this, what caused this candle, I don't know, but that was pretty fascinating to see. Already filled the gap from Thursday's gap or Friday's gap down. So long term, I mean, we're holding exactly where we need to on Snowflake. So target for me remains still around 325 on Snow. GE, this is one that I really like long term. I think that we're definitely going to, see this benefiting from the infrastructure bill. But my opinion doesn't matter. What matters is the price action. And the thing that I'm watching here on GE, and it's not the most popular stock, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But generally, the least popular stocks are the ones that you want to keep in mind because nobody's in them yet. So GE had a nice move up. We've been consolidating here. Previous resistance now acting as support, kind of similar to what we talked about on IWM earlier. And the fact that we are attempting to hold the 2016 anchored VWAP, the 2016 high anchored VWAP. Not looking great so far. If we close today for the month of August, we would close below it, but we still have about 6 trading days left. Let's see what happens. We also have a decent volume shelf here. However, if we break down through this volume shelf, there's a volume gap below until you get to around 85 bucks. Now, this did have a split, so 85 bucks. I don't even know what that would be in pre-split times, but 85 would be your level below to watch if this did break down. So just keep that in mind. Okay, Srini, thank you for that. Analyst claims slow growth has slowed. Oh, gotta love the analyst opinions. All right, thank you guys. I didn't know what exactly that was. So yeah, obviously the market was just trying to get some cheaper shares because we are now back to almost where we started there. Okay, thank you, Tyler. Thanks, guys, for that information. So that's Snow, GE. And then GE and Boeing are pretty tied. So let's just do Boeing real quick. Boeing looks very similar to GE. You've got almost the same exact monthly candle the last 2 months. SAT, I mentioned that these are just daily charts. Does not have anything to do with the pre-market action. I don't look at the pre-market action. So Boeing, same thing here. If you look here, technically kind of breaking down through the support. We'll just have to see what happens here, but for now, kind of stuck. So just keep that in mind with Boeing and GE as they kind of trade together. AMD, let's get into a hot sector. AMD is definitely one of those. So pretty simple kind of thought process here on AMD. If we anchor the volume by price from the July 19th low, you have this huge volume shelf forming that we did actually break down through over the last 4 or 5 days, and now we're retesting it. So this is pretty classic. You can easily have an undercut of the shelf, a move up. The market's got to digest that supply a little bit. That's why we likely closed right at the top of the shelf. But if this thing does continue up, I mean, my target for this one is $120 by mid-September. I mean, look at the daily chart. You literally went from the price we're at now to 120 in 3 days. If we have that type of similar move here on AMD, we could be at 120 by the end of the week. So just keep that in mind that, you know, I think this was definitely a dip to buy, and we're still very much in an uptrend here, and semiconductors are just hot, hot, hot. NVIDIA had great earnings. Another one that just had an absolute rip today. Nice breakout on Friday through resistance. So that was kind of your cue that we were definitely, getting to the point where probably some breakout buyers were coming in. And then just absolutely a massive rip today. Now, my price target, at least short term on this, is simply just the 1.618 extension. So here you will see that we've got a very similar move here. We got this breakout, retested it last week after earnings. And now all I did was I took the measured move from here, 1, 2, and that's where my 227.50 target comes above. So I think we could probably hit it this week. We'll just have to see, but so far so good on that one. A huge move to the upside, really strong setup going into the rest of the week on NVIDIA. Sorry, just looking at the chat. We'll probably look at CRWD if we have time. A lot of people have been asking about this one. ZipTick, no OTCs. No OTCs. Technical analysis does not work on OTC stocks. So Fastly, yeah, this is one that had a pretty strong day. So that's why I put it on the list. Still not a ton to look at here. Your volume weighted average price is way up here around 75. If you look at the daily chart, yeah, I put this on the list because I thought it had a strong day, but has so much to prove before it does anything. The one thing I'll point out here is the fact that we did kind of break out today. So if you look at a raindrop chart, you'll see that definitely volume backed breakout. So what does that mean? It means that if you're using the raindrop chart, which is a volume weighted chart, a lot of that volume profile is above resistance today. So that means that there was conviction by buyers willing to eat up that supply above resistance. So that definitely shows conviction on the buy side. So Fastly, keep that in mind. I mean, definitely a breakout to consider. If you anchor the volume weighted average price from the high, we need to get above 425 or so for this to really get going. Until then, just still chopping around. Now, SKLZ, I am just curious what this is looking like here. This is one that did have a falling wedge. At this point, kind of invalidated. At first, I thought, maybe this was just a little bit of a breakdown before fake out, but no, it's still stuck. However, this is one that can move very, very quickly. So just keep SKLZ on your watch list, especially if small caps can continue to move up. The target remains right around, let's say, this was my old target. And remember, the target changes because the volume weighted average price changes with time. So back here, I think, is when I came up with that target. Price actions continue down. Volume weighted average price is going to continue down. So now that's right around 1360 or so. So watch 1360 above on SKLZ if we do get a pop. MGNI, this is another one that I keep an eye on. I haven't traded it in a while, but this is one, if you look at the monthly chart, oops, look at the hollow candles here. The monthly chart, if you turn on the volume by price and anchor it from the COVID lows, you'll see here that you do have some volume starting to aggregate here. So keep that in mind that, this area is definitely where some volume is accumulating. However, the invalidation of this would be a breakdown below 24, and we're getting pretty close. So MGNI, also had a pretty strong day, but kind of like Fastly and these other names, you 1 or 2 days is not going to make it. You got to look at kind of the longer term picture here. And if we look at the all-time high anchored VWAP and volume by price, you'll see here that you have a ton of supply above right around 30 bucks. So could this get to 30 pretty quickly? Yes. But at that point, you got a lot of supply above that price is going to have to get through first. Next, Amazon. Oh, man. I haven't looked at this chart in a while. Another one that's just gotten creamed, which is interesting because a lot of these large cap names have just ripped. So Amazon is one that just is this weird looking chart here. Main thing that I'll focus on with Amazon is the fact that, one, we did break down kind of through this trend, continued down. If we do move back up, this previous support would be resistance above, let's say around 34.50. But keep in mind, if we use the gap snake, we do have a gap above. So if you guys see, I just turned on the gap snake. It's an automated gap detection. It will just detect any gaps in price. So notice all these orange areas here are just gaps that the system is finding on its own. And this is the main one above. So if you did want to be alerted, let's say when the price action gets to the lower part of this gap that hasn't filled, create an alert, and you'll actually be able to kind of create this alert for when the price starts to fill that gap even more. So this is one that hasn't really proven itself too much either. One strong day is going to make or break, but it is worth noting that this could be turning a corner here on Amazon. Tesla, quickly do Tesla here. So Tesla, I mean, pretty classic bounce off support, nothing too fancy here. You simply have just the price action trading right along the support zone. We do have a gap above right around 714. That would be an area above to fill. But all in all, I mean, if we move back to the top of this this area, that would put this around 800 bucks. So just keep in mind, Tesla, from a longer term perspective, may be ready to move up higher. Now, one thing I'll mention on Tesla is the seasonality. So if you look at seasonality since the IPO on Tesla, September and October are actually the 2 weakest months of the year. So just keep that in mind. The technical setup may be there, but the seasonality, at least going back since the IPO, these are the next 2 months are the weakest months of the year. Now, it has a 36% win rate for September and October. So that means that 36% of the time, Tesla has closed green in September and October. So I'm not saying there's not a chance. I'm just saying, historically speaking, these are not the strongest time of the year. These months are not the strongest time of the year for Tesla. So Apple is the last one that I had on my list. Apple looks absolutely ridiculously good right here. So if you anchor the volume by price from the March lows, this is kind of your pivot. Notice that we can highlight this green because we are now above the volume shelf. So remember, anytime the price is in this volume shelf, we're going to highlight it yellow. Anytime the price is above the volume shelf, we're going to highlight it green. So to me, Apple looks ready for new all-time highs. This is one that looks really strong. I think we're going to get a really strong move here in the coming weeks. We'll see. They do have the iPhone coming out, the new iPhone. So definitely something to consider. Well, yeah, already went over GRWG. All right, let's look at some of the. So BABA is definitely one a lot of people are talking about. We'll definitely look at BABA here. BABA, we will look at the monthly chart. And the main thing that I'm watching here on BABA is if you anchor the volume by price from the low here in 2015, we are trading a little below the volume shelf and the anchored VWAP. Now, remember, this is a monthly chart. We need to wait until the monthly candle closes before we can do any, too in-depth analysis on this. We still have some time before we get too serious about this candle. This could easily pop to 175, and all of a sudden you've got a pretty big wick here on the monthly chart. But for now, not a bullish setup with the monthly below the anchored VWAP and the volume shelf here. You may get a little bit of a bounce, but that's, if you want to look at a longer term setup, that's kind of what I'm thinking, that this is probably, not at that point yet where you could say this is a reversal. Who knows? We could be getting close, but for a long-term reversal, I need to see a bullish monthly candle. Now, if you look at the daily chart, this looks amazing on the daily chart. I mean, look at the last few times that we've tested this previous support. Nice multi-day bounce. Once again here, strong daily candle. You got a hammer here. You've got a gap down. The gap fills around 172. So as like a swing or like a day trade even, this may be a really strong contender into the coming days. Nice setup here on BABA. So I'm really liking the daily chart on BABA. All right, let's see another stock. Let's see. So BABA definitely was, CRWD, I think I said I'd go over that one. And that's the last one that we'll have time for. CRWD, let's look at the monthly chart, kind of zoom out a little bit. Yeah, I mean, this thing's just gone up so much. One thing I'd look at here is the Williams percent range. You do have divergence for now. So that means that you've got these higher highs and then you've got these lower highs here on the monthly chart. Keep that in mind. Not the strongest monthly setup here, but, just something to consider. Now, we did have this diamond top formation here that did break down. And you can see here on the weekly chart, at least, a decent hammer last week and a pretty strong start to the week. So all in all, this doesn't look too bad above. And the way that I would look at this is possibly kind of a bull flag forming here. So you've got a rough kind of flag. You've got your flagpole here. So if we can break above, let's say 260, this could definitely be a breakout play. So this is why you always have to look at multiple time frames. One time frame is not going to do it for you. You have to look at multiple time frames to get the whole story. So honestly, looking at this on the weekly chart, this actually looks pretty damn good. So yeah, keep this one on your radar for this bull flag breakout in the next maybe couple weeks. So that is all the time I have. It is 6 p.m. Eastern time, 4 p.m. here in Denver. That's my cutoff for Benzinga. So yeah, that is it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I think we went over like 30 or more stocks. So, I can't go over them all. So sorry guys if I didn't get to your request. Maybe next time. And Spencer, handing it back to you.
Not Spencer, but I
wasn't even looking. Sorry, my bad.
Oh, you are all good, brother. But yeah. Great show today, Jake. We are going to go ahead and get over to a new show that Spencer's putting on called Elite Trading with Jesse Elite. So should be a good show over there. Do not go anywhere. This stream will automatically redirect you there. And Jake, we'll see you next time.
See you next time.